made. That's vacancies that are.
So we will have this recording. It will be also on the Ward 8 Democrats website. We'll have it on Councilmember White's website. And so it'll be housed there for you to refer back to anytime you like to. President Prestwood, it's on you, sir.
Well, Wanda, thank you so much. You are an incredible part of the Ward 8 community. I so thank you, and I thank Councilmember White and his entire team, which I know is also on the call, for just reaching back out to us again. This is the second year in a row, like you said, and we think we had some really good success last time. And so I was always told, if it works the first time, do it again. And so we're back to do it one more time. And so thank you, of course, thank you to Councilmember White and to the team as well. Wanda, if you can give me host sharing capability, that would be icing on the cake.
Well, let's put the icing on the cake. Stand by.
Okay. And good afternoon to everybody who is joining us, or good evening, I should say, to everyone who's joining us as well. We are so excited that we are in budget season. And I know it's like an oxymoron, because we're talking about the budget for 2025, fiscal year 2025, which begins at the October 1st, 2024. But this is the time where it has been allotted for us. This is the time allotted for us to go through that process. Now we got to get it through the council. We got to first get it from the mayor, get it through the council, and then get it up to Capitol Hill. As you know, we have a very unique and special relationship with our congressional overseers. And so because of all of that, we have to meet certain deadlines and benchmarks by certain times. And so that's what this whole process is about. And I'll be sure to tell you a little bit about what those dates and deadlines are, so you know it. But let me just check to see if I have shared capability. And I do. Thank you so much, Wanda. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen with all of you. And once again, say good evening. Oh, it's asking me to admit people to the room. Okay, y'all got that. Okay. Just making sure someone is taking care of admitting people into the room.
I will be taking care of that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
no interruptions for you.
No problem. I'm like, what? Okay. I'm gonna just put a focus on here. Okay. I think we're good here. All right, like I said, welcome. I'm Troy Prestwood. I'm the president of the Ward 8 Democrats. This is my third term. I'm a former advisory neighborhood commissioner for ANC 88, which is the Anacostia area there. You know, I'm a small business owner based right here in Ward 8. I care very deeply about our people, about our citizens, about our city. I went from grade school to grad school right here in DC, and I am a native Washingtonian. And so I say all of that because that gives you a sense of where I come from and how I'm approaching this opportunity for us to educate our residents about the budget process. So again, thank you all for being here, and let's go ahead and get started. So I did the introductions. You heard from Wanda Lockridge, who is the Chief of Staff for Councilmember Trayon White before me. I just told you who I am, and we want to sort of follow this process here with the budget process for the council. We're going to talk about how to find your way. What does that look like? What does that mean in terms of preparing yourself to engage with the council for this upcoming budget season? How to testify, what those hearing dates are, because I know that many of you are very concerned about that. The dates have shifted a bit, and so I do have some to share with you, at least the overall framework of it. And then I think I have specific dates for the committees that fall under Councilmember Trayon White, so that we'll take a look at those. I also found the budget hearing dates for at-large Councilmember Anita Bonds, and so we'll share that with you as well. And then we'll tell you about some resources we have and Q&A, and then we will adjourn I do want to recognize that the council member has a number of staffers on this call. Many of them are engaged in the legislative process. And so I am not the expert on everything budget. And so I will certainly pause and let other members of his team answer questions that you all may have. But we'll try to get through that as best as we can. And here's the thing. Whenever we don't have an answer, we tell you up front we don't have an answer, and then we'll come back to it, or we'll post it later to say, here's the answer to that question that was brought up earlier. With that being said, let's go ahead and start our conversation. I should probably put it on this. There we go. All right. That looks better anyway, right? It's a full screen. That takes up all your screen there. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about the budget oversight hearing schedule. As I mentioned earlier, it has shifted. And so we want to let you know when those dates are. The first thing you need to know is that the mayor is going to transmit the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget and financial plan to the council on Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. So mark that date, put it in your calendar. This is when the mayor will have a big press conference and she'll say, here is my budget. Here is my budget, which reflects our DC values and the things that DC residents care about. I don't want to write her speech, but that's probably something that she will say. And it will also reflect ideas that's come in from all of you, the residents of the District of Columbia. I will tell you, as you heard Wanda Lockridge say earlier, there will be some budget cuts this year because there's some soft revenue that they have been relying on before. That revenue is either lower now or it's drying up or no longer available, especially the money from the federal government. And so it will be an interesting budget. That's why every conversation, every outreach, every story will be important when we reach out to the council to let them know what we're thinking. So again, this is when the mayor would transmit her budget to the council on April 3rd. That's the latest date. That's an update from when it was initially, which was March 20th. So as I mentioned earlier, the mayor will transmit the budget on the 3rd, and then the 4th through April 4th through May 2nd, that's about a month, will basically be the agency budget oversight hearings. So that means that each of the committees that are under the DC Council, for example, Trayon White, Councilmember White has the committee on recreation, youth services, and libraries. That's a committee. Those committees will be held, all of those committees will have budget hearings through from April 4th through May 2nd. So I mentioned earlier, I have some dates I can give you, but not all of the committee dates have been published yet, unless something has changed between this moment and about 6 hours ago. If someone knows that all of the dates have been published, please let me know or go ahead and put it in the chat. And that way, into a link at least, so that people can see it. But I finished working on this a few hours ago. So, but this is what I know right now is that the budget hearings will take place from April 4th through Thursday, May 2nd. There will be a budget legislative hearing. That's when all the council gets together and say, okay, here is what we think we should do with the budget. We've heard everything. We've talked to all of the different agencies. We've heard from people, and here's what we think we should do going forward. It's like a blueprint, if you will, that they've taken from the mayor. And then there's going to be markups, so that it goes back out. It will go back out to those committees, and the committees will do markups on that budget. And that's going to be a really truncated time period right now of May 8th through May 10th, which is a very, very special day. And then, but not for budget reasons. And then there's going to be a budget council work session that's going to be on May 15th. The first vote by the Committee of the Whole is going to be on May 29th, 2024. And then the second vote, because in the district, we have to vote on things twice to make it official. So the second vote will be June 12th. 2024. And both of those dates will be on Fridays. And I will say, even though I've highlighted the agency budget oversight hearings, I highlighted that row there because that's really where we will be testifying, or we're getting you prepared to prepare your testimony for these budget oversight hearings. The truth of the matter is that, as you well know, that period between the first vote and the second vote, things do happen. And it's one last opportunity, if you will. I can't, I don't want to say it officially, but unofficially, it is a last bit of an opportunity for you to also influence your council members about, the things that you care about. It's not testifying, but it is reaching out. It's what we call outreach. Sometimes it's hard outreach, but it's still a still period because things can change, votes can change between the first and the second vote. So I always say when we're talking about testifying, or whenever we want to tell our stories, we have to find out why. I mentioned this last time, and so I thought it would be poignant to mention it again. What's your why? We have to figure out the why, because it can't just be because you want to testify just because. You have to have the reason to testify. And I say this because everyone, who say that, well, I wish the city would do this, or I wish the mayor would do that, or I wish the council member would do this. We have to be very specific as to what that wish is and what the outcome is that we want from our wish. And so the way to do that is to tell your story. It's finding your why. Sometimes your why can be for yourself. It can be that you have not, seen opportunity that you think we're missing in a particular area. So again, your why. It could be for your kids. You could say, my children are my why. I care very deeply about education, or I care very deeply about recreation centers or libraries because I'm concerned about our young people or my young people. That's your why. It could be because you live next door you have a neighbor who is a senior, and maybe you've seen some tough times for that senior. And so for you, it's like, hey, I'm not going through a particular issue, but my neighbor who is a senior, and I think someone should speak up and talk for them if they can't do it, or help them do it. And so that too can be your why. The point here is you got to reach down and find your why, connect to your why, your story, because then that will help you in the next step, which is preparing a testimony. But you have to find the why, or in this case, your why, for why you care deeply about a particular issue and topic. I tell you, for years, I used to just hate writing. I'm like, oh God, here, I'm writing again. And I would always, even though the writing at the end will be good because, it just is, but I always struggled with the passion behind the why. But I always found that whenever I was passionate about something, or if I cared very deeply about it, or I connected to it, then the words just flowed out of me so easily. That's the same trick I want to teach all of you, is to find your why. If you connect with your passion, your why, then testifying is going to be a piece of cake. So when we talk about finding your why, what is it? It's a statement of purpose that describes why you do the work that you do, or why you live the lifestyle that you do. It's your calling. It's your conviction. It's your mission statement. It's what you care deeply about. Another definition or phrase around finding your why is, it's important to ask what your why is, the main thing that gives you a strong sense of purpose and well-being. The same things we just said earlier. It really helps you find and develop a more confidence as to why you're there to have the impact that you want to have. It is, first, you have to connect to the why, the why, the why, the why. So as I go on to once again remind you about finding your why, tell me in the chat right now, what's your why? What are the things that you care about in your community, in the District of Columbia? What are the things that matter to you right now, right this moment? Tell me your why. Tell us your why. Maybe again, it's about young people, or it's about our seniors, or maybe it's something totally different that we're not quite tapping into. Tell us what your why is. Why do you want to testify? Why do you think you should testify? Who are you testifying for? What is the outcome that you want? Go ahead and use the chat feature right now and tell us your why. I'll read a couple of them if we have some time. Thanks, Chris. Okay, anyone want to share their why? Just go ahead and type it right now in the chat. What's your why? There is a question, can attendees receive the presentation slides? Absolutely. For us, it'll be posted on the Ward 8 Democrats page at ward8dems.com. You can certainly go there and download it. That will be after all of this is done. All right, looking for people to tell us your why. What's your why? Okay, here's one here. One why says the installation of bike lanes and the removal of parking. If we have to cut the budget, cut the rebates on e-bikes. Okay, all right. That could be something that you could talk to the council about, Nick. You can certainly, when they get to the budget oversight hearing for transportation, you can say, you know what? I see we have to cut the budget, but we have all these other areas that we've been funding. Let's talk about what this looks like. Can we maybe curtail this to maybe put more funding in another area? So that could be one area. Of course, you'll have people who may feel the opposite of that, especially folks who may want to have a bike and want that help that the district is offering. Right now, I think they're only offering it to individuals who are low income, but in the future, they're supposed to expand it to everyone. That could maybe be a point that you could make there. So there's that. All right, we have better education and employment opportunities, greater access to fresh health and more green spaces for our children. And that's coming from Dewan. Of course, Dewan is very big on access to healthy foods. And so that's her why. She's tapping into her why. She's doing the work right now in the community. And so when she goes before the council or when she testifies, all of that's going to pour out of her like water. Why? Because she is tapped into her why. We have Sandra Segrist here, because children deserve more than they are getting. Okay, yeah, okay, great. Yeah, they do. That could be your why. Protecting youth and missing youth. Yeah. A really big why there, especially with all that we've seen going on and the anniversary really of they say that she's missing, or some people presume that she's dead, but the young lady who, of course, is no longer with us, or we don't know where she is. There's a lot of people who are asking about that, like, could that be my kid? Could that be my neighbor's kid? Maybe it was someone's kid who was missing once. That could be your why as well. You have pollution, dirty streets. Absolutely. More benefits and protection for the elderly. Absolutely. And listen, you may not be an elderly person. Like when my grandmother was with us, I learned about the Department of Aging. And I was like, wow, like they do so much for elderly individuals in the city. I'm not just going to sit there and fight for my grandmother, but if I'm going to go there and testify or reach out to that agency, I'm going to tap into what we should be doing for all seniors. And again, you don't have to be a senior to do that. All right, Khalik is talking about how we need to make more young people, make sure young people in our ward get what they need to succeed. And so that could be your why. That could help, again, help you flow. Of course, well, Khalik is a pastor or reverend. So of course, they usually have the gift of speaking. But for some people, for other people, they may need to tap into that as well. Helping parents and children reduce school truancy. That's a really big thing right now. Councilmember Parker just introduced or is about to introduce legislation that speaks to that. And so he's going to have him. It's going to be separate from these budget hearings, but those hearings are going to be coming up really soon, probably during the summer. You may want to reach out and testify for that once they come up. All right, we're seeing more about seniors. Oh, first-time home buyers incentives. Yeah, like if you really, like I'm a first-time home buyer, I bought in Ward 8, And like, I want to see us expand these programs to people who want to be homeowners. That's the one way someone mentioned earlier about trash in the street and different things like that. But when you're a homeowner, when you got, as they say, skin in the game, some things you just won't put up with. You might even be willing to go out and get it yourself and spread the news to others so that they don't litter in your neighborhood. So home ownership for those who want it, I'm definitely, that could be a why for sure. Parental support, absolutely. Mandatory parental involvement, housing vulnerable populations, fair and equitable health care for all. Yes, yes, yes. These are great whys. And so if you tap into these whys, then again, the testimony will come out of you very easily. Like I said earlier, for me, it was always hard when I was doing a lot of writing because I wasn't connected to the material. But boy, when I really feel passionate about something, it pours out of me. And that's what I know it will do for all of you as well. So thank you all who have typed in your whys in the chat. Those are very good whys. And so let's move on to what I find are the tips for success. Now, some of them are more, some of them are less, but because this is Ward 8, I wanted to focus on 8, of course. There are probably more, of course, but I think these are a good way for us to start. I'm going to go ahead and I know that, okay, got it. Someone is trying to get in. Okay. All right, so here's the first one. Prepare your testimony. As we find out why, the next thing we want to do is we want to prepare our testimony to thoroughly prepare our testimony in advance. So we want to clearly outline your points, your concerns, your recommendations. You want to keep it concise and you want to keep it focused on the budget issues that affect Ward 8. Now, I know we're talking about the budget, the fiscal year 25 budget, but this can be for any other testimony that we've been talking about. Even if you just want to reach out to your ANC and you want to submit testimony to them about different issues that are hyper local in your community, these tips will go a long way to help you with that. And so again, this is about preparing your testimony. You do want to be prepared. You don't have to over prepare, but you want to have something there that clearly outlines your point of view, your concerns. And, we don't always talk about this, but recommendations are also important. Oftentimes you hear people say, well, this is a problem. Someone should fix it. Someone should fix it. Well, you know what? True, maybe it is a problem and someone should fix it. But also, maybe you have a recommendation that should be shared. Maybe the reason why it's a problem and no one has fixed it is because there is no recommendation or no good way of doing it. Well, then maybe you have it. In fact, you probably have it. And so you should include that in your testimony when you are either testifying in person or if you are doing it in writing. And again, keep it concise and focus on the issue at hand. The next one here is understanding the budget process. So that's why you all are here. Congratulations. You're doing step 2 as it is. You're familiarizing yourself with the DC budget process, including the key deadlines, which I went over earlier, and I will do it one more time. The decision-making stages, we talked about that too. And the roles of the various committees. This understanding will help you strategically time your testimony and frame your arguments to align with the budget timeline. And so it is important that you understand the budget process. So all of you who are here and those who will watch it after the fact, who are going to watch this on YouTube or another channel later, this is step 2. You're understanding the budget process or getting more information, or you're familiarizing yourself. You may already have an understanding, but you're getting a deeper understanding today. The next one here is to emphasize the specific ways that budget decisions impact Ward 8 residents. So highlight the local impact, right? Share the real life examples. We just went through that exercise a moment ago about finding your why. Or if you're just speaking vicariously through other people, it could be your neighbor, it could be your children, could be the students in your neighborhood, could be the traffic or the infrastructure. All of those things are very, very important. And so you want to emphasize the specific ways that the budget decisions will impact you or impact residents or impact the people you care about, and use your real life examples. You can't no one tell your story better than you. So use your real life examples. You can even use stats. Stats are, you can get them from the city, you can get them from wherever, but not wherever. They should be factual. Shouldn't make them up, but certainly you can use stats for that. Again, personal stories to illustrate your points and to make them more relatable. Next one is to offer constructive solutions and alternatives to address the challenges facing Ward 8 or facing you or facing your neighbor. So focus on solutions. We talked about that earlier. We want to make sure that I think, all of us, our brains together collectively, we would be just dangerous, right? Like it's nothing we can't do as a collective. So focus on solutions. Provide those solutions when you are testifying or when you are crafting crafting your testimony. I think it's important that we do offer solutions and recommendations. The next one here is leveraging community resources. So, you're using one today, for example, we're the Ward 8 Democrats. We're not the only organization that is in Ward 8 or in the district that could help you as you are strengthening your advocacy efforts. You can collaborate with folks like myself and other leaders. There's other folks who are even on this Zoom today, some of whom I saw names earlier who are connected to the community, who are community leaders in their own rights. There's also nonprofit organizations, grassroots organizations. They can help you amplify your message, and they can help mobilize support around your priorities. And so while you are testifying, it's okay to say, we as a group we're testifying. It could be all of a particular organization that's testifying. We often see that anyway. We see groups testifying or groups of people who are part of an organization testifying, and that's fine. But what happens is it often leads to council members or their committee members not fully seeing the big picture. That's why I want to make sure, even if you're not leveraging all of those community resources, that you go in there as a party of one. You are enough. You don't have to be a part of a group. Being a part of a group has its advantages, but you alone can also go at it. You can testify alone. And so, but just in case you want to have a bigger impact, certainly leveraging community resources is another way of doing that. The next one here is respectful and professional conduct. I don't have to say that to the folks on this call here in Ward 8. We already know that we're all respectful and professional. It's just a quick reminder here that, at the end of the day, the people who we are reaching out to and testifying to, they're human just like us. Sometimes they may not know our issue, or they may not know it as intimately or as personally as we do. And so we have to give them that grace, even though we are firm and we want to be very clear with them that this is what we want to have done. It's okay to be firm and clear. It's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That does not cross the line of being disrespectful. I would say that the other thing to be mindful of this is that there are time limits for those of you who want to testify in person. Keep in mind that they usually will cut you off at 3 minutes. Even some committees actually allow you to do voicemail testimony, and that too cuts you off in 3 minutes. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but just be mindful that there is a process here. And also, as I used to always say, my grandmother would say, when you walk out the house, remember, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing your mom, me, the family. And so you want to make sure that when this process is done, that people look at you and say, oh yeah, those are the Joneses. Oh, they go hard, but they write about their stuff. So just be mindful that you want to always just have a professional and respectful demeanor because these things live on, and they're recorded or they are part of a case file, and you don't want anything to come back that may, say, oh, that was not professional. The other thing too, this happens, I hear this from a lot of residents who say, once I did what I came to do, once I testify, I didn't hear anything else from the council or from their staff. And so I always say, that's okay. You know what? It's one of them or five of them, and it's, it's a council there, and it's what, 85,000 of us. So that means that we can follow up as well. So I always say, don't be afraid to follow up after the hearing with your council members. You can thank them for their time, for listening. You can reiterate your key points. So when you see them out at the grocery store, or you see them in the line at the DMV, which I recently saw one, you can say, hey, I just want to make sure you understand where I'm coming from on this particular issue, just in case anything was left unsaid. Offer to provide additional information and answer any questions that they may have. That's totally okay. Like, council members generally and their staff, they generally want to help. They want to be helpful. And so, follow up with them, and they want to make sure they have all the information so that they can present that information to their other colleagues, because at the end of the day, it's not just one council member, it's council members. And in order to get something passed through the council, you need what? Half plus one. So you need 7. And so one council member alone can't get it done. So when they have all the information they need, if you're following up with them, then they can then make that that case for it. And then the last of the 8 tips for a successful testimony that I'm going to provide today is to stay engaged beyond the budget hearing. When I was a commissioner, I always hear people say, I never heard from nobody after this happened, or I didn't know anything else about other ways of continuing the dialogue or discussions beyond the hearings. Well, the thing is, there are lots of on-ramps, as we say, for you to stay engaged. I mentioned the ANC Commission. That's one way of doing it. They meet monthly, as you know. There's maybe your neighborhood community organization. I say get engaged with that. Your council members. So, of course, we have a Ward 8 specific. We have a Ward specific council member for Ward 8. That's Trayon White, of course. But we have 4 so-called at-large members, and then we have 1 council chair. So really 5 at-large members who also represent us just as much as our Ward 8 council member does. And so it's important that you follow up with all of them. When you have a particular issue, I reach out to my council member, and I CC the other 6. The other 5, sorry. So I always CC the other 5 because they too represent me as well. And I want them to know what I'm talking about in this particular issue. So again, stay engaged beyond the hearings, get involved. You can certainly get involved with an organization like mine, Ward 8 Dems. But if you're not a Democrat, or maybe you're something else, or you don't want to get into politics, again, there's lots of ways to get engaged and stay engaged beyond the hearings. So I hope that was helpful, those 8 tips. If you need to screenshot that, go ahead and do that right now. I will have these slides up on the Ward 8 Dems website, ward8dems.com, and I believe the council member will have it up as well on his site. But these are just the 8 tips I'm calling, 8 tips for a successful testimony. Since we're Ward 8, I'm giving you 8. And I think this will help go a long way. So now that we know how to do this, here's some ways to do it. Again, you can submit written testimony to each of these committees. And you want to do it before the close of the official hearing testimony. And by the way, the testimony can be written. It can include photos. It can include other evidence to back up your reasoning for why you for your why, right? For why you are there to testify. I mentioned earlier, there's a little known feature that some committees have, and it's called voicemail testimony. And basically, you will call a very unique number that is set up for that particular committee, and you will speak your testimony on the phone, and it will cut you off in 3 minutes. And so what I don't have clarity on is, does it give you a warning? I'm not sure on that. I can try to get clarity on that, but you can at least speak it. Not every committee has this though. And so I just want you all to know that this is some committees have it, but not all. But the other thing that's really big, and this came out of COVID, is these virtual meetings, right? A lot of this particular one is a meeting, right? It's virtual. We're not doing this in person. And it's more convenient. Perhaps you're out of town, maybe you're across town, maybe you can't be in a single space, but it's still good information that you can receive here. And so the council has a lot of virtual meetings and roundtable discussions. They use either Zoom or WebEx, and there are instructions on how to find those and how to testify virtually. I've done it a couple of times. In fact, I testified one time. I was out the country and I still was able to testify. And so, that's another option for you if you want to do that. I think a lot of them are mostly virtual as far as the hearings are concerned, but some of them are also going to be in person, or they're doing a hybrid. And then if you are someone, or if you know someone who needs interpretation services, maybe they need closed captioning, or they need a spoken language interpreter, someone who speaks a different language, for example, but they still have a why, they still have a reason to come and testify. Council does allow for this type of service for anyone who requests it, but you do have to do it by a certain date. And so on here, I have, it says 5 business days before the proceedings. I would, again, take a look at the actual website, and it tells you all of this information, who to contact, who to email, so that you can then reach out and let them know that you need, or someone that you are working with needs interpretation services. Here are some hearing dates for Councilmember Trayon White's committee. Take a snapshot of that so that you will see them. Actually, it's his committee, but it's also the committees that he's on. And so here's some dates that we have. This is hot off the presses. And so we know now, because the budget process has been moved, or really pushed back. So these are the new dates here that they've published. And so, of course, these dates are subject to change, but this is what we have right now. And so, for example, the public library, that's always a big one, because you always see a lot of folks who I talk to who always say the library this, the library that. Well, this is an opportunity for you to actually come and testify about what you want to see from the library. I remember Philip Pennell used to always say he wanted to see longer hours for the library. He's been saying that for years. And then sometimes it takes years to see it happen. You got to stay at it. It's like a aircraft carrier. You got to, it takes a while to turn it. So that's how our government works sometimes. But eventually they did fund it. And you know what? It could be on the chopping block, because there's a budget cuts that are coming this year. But if this is something important to you, you need to show up and let them know that you want to see these public libraries stay open longer or keep their hours, if that's something that you care about. And so you see the other ones there and the dates and the times. I did find Councilmember Anita Bonds' hearing dates as well. And so she has some dates. I don't have the times for her, but again, go ahead and take a snap of that, either with your picture or do a screen grab, and reach out to her. Or again, you can follow up on the council's website, which I'm going to go through a little bit in just a second, where you can see exactly how to find this information and how to sign up. So for example, I had mentioned earlier that I became a real big advocate for seniors based on, what was happening with my grandmother who raised me. And so the Department of Aging, for example, as you see right here on your screen, they're having a meeting. If they had a meeting, or maybe these dates are wrong. I don't know. But anyway, we'll find out. Let's move on. All right. So again, finding your why. Again, I always come back to that, because I'm always like, what's your why? What's your why? So again, if any of those things that I've said have, touched you in a way that you're like, okay, I think I want to testify on this particular issue, or on this particular topic, or I want to testify on behalf of somebody or for somebody, then again, tap into that why. It's going to help you write that testimony. In fact, you may go on a little too long, like I often do at these things, and they're going to say you're running out of time, or you overtime, but it's going to be flowing out of you because you're passionate about it. So again, tap into your why. Find your why. Once you do that, it will write itself. So I have a slide here. I'm going to go ahead and just pull them all up. So those of you who want to do a screen grab of it can. This sort of talks about how you access the hearings, but I'm going to actually do something better. I'm going to walk you through it because I think that looks better. And then we'll pause and answer any questions that you may have. But this basically tells you how to submit testimony, where you would submit it, how, you know, the difference between live testimony or record testimony. It tells you about that here. We'll talk about that in a second. How to upload and the type of files that they only accept here. You always got to remember that reCAPTCHA, you know, that's a thing that now everyone is doing to say if you are human or if you are a robot. And then, of course, it tells you you should get something at your email that says they received your testimony. And that's important because you want to make sure it's received, right? If you didn't hear back, it's like, well, did they really get it? So I'm going to stop sharing these slides for the time being. And let me know if you have any, go ahead and put questions in the chat now because we're going to come to that in pretty relative short order. But I want to actually walk you through what this looks like on the council's website. That way you will have this information and you'll be familiar with it. All right. So here's the council's website. You know, once you arrive on the site, it's a nice little mural right there from Noma. And so as you scroll down, as I'm doing here, it already puts, you know, some information there for you about what's happening on the 27th and the 28th. So a bit of a calendar feature is right there on the homepage. You can certainly use this to find information that you might be looking for. But I'm going to actually and you can scroll down. It has council updates, you know, news and information and those type of things. It's all good stuff. There's even some more information here about performance oversight and budget oversights. Okay, yeah, find your council member. It's a good site. You should go to it when you are done with this call at dccouncil.gov. But what I wanted to show you really was clicking on hearings. And so if you see up here in the upper, it's not really the upper right hand, but it's more like in the center, but it's up here at the top of the page. It's the first option reading from left to right. There's hearings. So if you click on that, it takes you to a page that has how you can check out these hearings. So one says accessing hearing management system. One says live events. So if there's something happening right now, you can go here and click on it and you can tap right into the actual hearing. There's archive hearings. It's a very good place to go and watch past hearings. And then there's also an alternative stream that's being offered by the Office of Cable Television. But for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to click on Access Hearing Management System. Okay, and so then it takes you to this new site. This is like a new system for the council. And it takes you to a page where you can do a few things. One, you can look at all committees. And so everything would be listed below. Or you can say, I'm only concerned about the committees that, again, I care about, that I'm going to testify on because I found my why. And maybe it is on health. And so if it's health, well, lo and behold, there are 2 upcoming meetings that are on the calendar right now that you can go into, and they're actually oversight hearings. Look at that, same thing we're talking about. And it's going to be on Monday, April 8th at 9 o'clock in the morning. And so you can actually click on that, and it takes you to a page where you get more information. At the bottom especially, it tells you about, you know, the whole process, about the budget. But up here, for example, it tells you who have signed up. You have 7 witnesses so far, and it tells you the topics that they're going to discuss. So let's say this is something you care about, because the topics they're going to discuss is going to be the oversight of the health benefit exchange, or as well as the nonprofit or not-for-profit hospital association, UMC, over here in Ward 8, right? So perhaps some of you do care about this because it's right here in our neighborhood. And so 7 participants so far. Let's say you want to be the 8th. You can do a couple of things. You can register to testify, and I'm going to go ahead and click on that. So you see it. You can say your individual or your organization. You also need to let them know which because it's going to be two separate hearings in one, but so you got to let them know which topic you want to testify on. And so let's just say it's about UMC. And let's say you're doing it as yourself. Like I said, you don't need no one's help. It can be just you. Okay. You put in your name, information is asking you here. Remember, we talked about the interpreter part. I asked you if you need one and what language you need one. It also asks you if you have particular pronouns, and then you do have to tick off this box at the bottom here, and then you got to go through the whole robot thing, right? That you're not a robot. And then you hit submit. This is if you want to sign up to testify, and you're going to write your testimony based on the things we talked about earlier. And this is when you're going to appear on camera and give them your testimony, your 3 minutes right there on the screen. But let's just back out of this and say, well, you know what? I don't have time to testify. Okay, it's not coming up here. Oh, yes, it is. All right. Let's say, you know, I'm not going to be able to testify at 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday, April 8th, but I do want them to know some things that will be helpful as they are wrestling with this particular topic. So then what you can do is submit testimony, and you can click that there. You can do one or two things. You can submit your testimony for what you're going to say live in person, like either virtually or in person, or you can do record testimony, which is an opportunity for you to basically submit your testimony down here. You can type it out here as you see me doing there, or you can have it already written in a format that we have some templates that we're going to give you a little bit later, where you can basically click on that and go straight there. And then you can upload it, and you can upload it with only a PDF or Word, a pages document, or any type of a just text page. And you can upload it that way, and you hit submit, and you should get a reminder as well, because what you're doing is putting in your email address. You should get a notice that they received it. And so this is really it, guys. Like, this is how simple they've made it for us to testify before the DC Council. It's not as hard and scary as it used to be, where you always had to show up at the Wilson building, or we used to call it the district building, to testify. There's so many ways that you can still speak on an issue or a topic without you necessarily having to go down there in person. You can do it virtually, like I said earlier. Some committees have voicemail feature where you'll leave a voicemail, and it will transcribe that voicemail into testimony. And you can also again, you can do virtual, or you can submit it the written testimony, which is what I just showed you a moment ago. So I'm going to pause there in case there are any questions right now from any of you. If you can use the chat feature, you can use the Q&A feature. We will try to get through them as many as we can. I am going to actually look for, while I'm waiting for individuals to either use the chat feature or the Q&A feature, I'm looking for an actual folder to give you all, which has some templates in it from last year, but they're still good for this year. Just know that you may see something that says 2023 on it. But go ahead and use that chat feature, and we will take a look at it. Let's see here. Looking. All right. As I'm looking. Okay. Any chat? Anyone want to raise their hand? You can come on. I think this is set up for you to actually speak as well if you want to speak. All right. So let's see here what we got. Few points to consider. This is from Lee Thompson. It says Ward 8 budget funding for the streetcar extension. The extension will eliminate isolation. And okay, great, got it. So that's something to consider. If that's something you care about, Lee, my advice to you would be to testify on it so that they understand your point, where you get the juice I want to juice you all up to actually testify. You know, another stat that came to me when when we started doing this a couple of years ago was that Ward 8 residents don't testify at the same rate that other ward residents do. So this is the main reason why we do this type of a information session, because oftentimes we'll talk to one another and we'll be in the amen choir, but they can't do nothing more for you than what you could by yourself. So it's important that we're talking to the right people, that we're actually bringing our voice, we're raising our voice, or bringing the concerns of others to the people who are there to affect change. And so, Lee, I would certainly advise that if this is something you care deeply about, that you sign up to testify. Chris Baker asks how are committee assignments determined? Well, one of the things you have to remember is that there is seniority, right? So the longer you are on the council, you sort of get you get access to the committee that you want to be on. If you are a newbie to the council, let's say Councilmember Parker, for example, and Councilmember Parker is one of the most recent ones, then he generally, as a newbie, they don't generally chair a committee. They usually are just assigned to a committee. It could be the committees that they want to be on, that they have a great interest in, or it could be one that's assigned to them by the council chairman. So Phil Mendelson has a lot of power in this area. He has he does get to decide what committees each council member is on. But that doesn't mean that the council member cannot advocate for what committee they want to be on or for what committee they want to chair. And so how can you watch and observe these committees to see their testimonies? Again, I went through that earlier, but it is on that website there at dccouncil.gov. You go to that website, if you click on hearings in the top portion of the menu option there, click on hearings, it gives you options. You can either testify for a hearing, register to testify for a hearing, watch some hearings, watch previous hearings, all on that one page. And if I can find the link, I will drop it in the chat so that you all can just, you can see exactly what I'm saying and go straight to that page. Here we are, hearings. Okay, let's see what else we got here. You mentioned that groups can testify together, but what about individuals who care about a similar issue? Absolutely, yes. So what happens when I say groups, what I mean is that what we often see is that groups will, organizations, when I say groups, I mean like organizations or groups, they will basically corral individuals to go and testify on a particular topic or issue. And it may be one that they care deeply about. And that's okay, right? Like we see a lot of education organizations out here that will help train parents, for example, to go and testify. So they're not testifying per se as an organization, but they've been prepared for testimony by an organization. And so they're all lined up, maybe one after the other, to say, you know, I care about education. I care about these cuts to my child's school and to other children's schools. And so, you know, we don't want cuts. That's a usual thing that we see, an example of something that we see from time to time. But an organization can testify as well. Like when I used to be a commissioner, I would, you know, if I had something I had to testify on behalf of our commission, I would do it as not an individual, but as the as the Advisory Neighborhood Commission 8A, for example. If I'm testifying on behalf of Ward 8 Democrats, it would be that organization as well. So you can do both. All right, Lee, I got you on that. Okay, got it. Thank you, Lee. Okay, and I did drop that link in there as far as hearings for the DC Council. And so I'm looking at any other questions or Q&A, looking for the Q&A. Looks like there's a Q&A. Can I tell you? Okay, got all that already. All right, we answered all those. Okay, so as we are coming to a close, is there any burning questions? Raise your hand. Let's recognize you. Let's either use the chat feature or the Q&A feature. This is really your last chance to talk in this setting concerning how to prepare for the budget, for budget hearing. Is there a question I didn't quite answer, or is there a question or a statement you want more clarity on? This is the time to get it before we shut it down. So I am going to just check to see if we have any Q&A, any chat. All right, looks like we have one person with a hand up. And so, Sherry, if you're able to unmute yourself, go ahead.
Yes, good evening.
Good
So
evening.
I'm a Maryland resident, but my grandmother is DC and she's 102.
Oh
Am
my
I able to testify for her on her behalf?
That's a great question. And first of all, congratulations to your grandmother who's 102 years old. How incredible is that? My great aunt just turned 100 back earlier this month. So the answer to your question is absolutely you can. It's there are people who testify before the DC Council who are from all over the country, even all over the world, right? Especially if there is legislation or a particular interest that they, want to weigh in on. I remember when the bag tax happened here some 15 years ago, I think there were, the people from the plastics industry wanted to testify. And so, they came by that, back then we didn't do Zooms, but they came from, where they are at to testify against it, right? Because they felt like it would be a bad thing. And so, yes, you can certainly testify on behalf of your grandmother, even though you don't live in the district. It's a great question. All right. Looking at the chat here. On education. So the education committee is technically the committee of the whole. So Chairman Mendelson chairs the education committee because it falls within the committee of the whole. I would stay connected to the site. There is a way you can actually sign up for calendar updates or keep checking back. And that way you can, get the latest information once those hearing dates are published. I will say, as I said at the very beginning, the council is scrambling a bit because they are still trying to get all those dates scheduled because, again, initially they thought they were going to get the budget from the mayor back on March the 20th, and now it's going to be April 3rd. Okay, hand. Okay, absolutely, Dominique, you're very welcome. And you're very welcome, Sherry. All right. Khalid, go right ahead.
All right, hello. So my question would be, after sharing our concerns and perspectives in the council, my main curiosity would be about the next steps for action. How can we ensure that the issues that we raise and the things about the budget we raise are not only heard, but also addressed effectively? And then additionally, how can other members of the community get involved in advocating for these important matters like education, as far as like funding for schools, funding for, youth? How can we make sure that the council, how do we hold them accountable to, what we addressed?
Again, that's a great question, right? And I would say, and one of the things I mentioned when I said, here are the 8 tips like for successful testimony. The last one was to stay engaged. And that means that even after you've testified, even after you've reached out to your council member or to the council member's office, because let's be real, the office, they actually do a lot of the heavy lifting here on behalf of the council member. But, once you've reached out and once you have, you're excited because you've testified and you get to say, I testified, then your question is a salient one. It's how do you then follow up? How do you ensure that your testimony was heard and considered? I will say this, not everything is going to happen at one time. I remember years ago, we wanted a recreation center, a new one in Anacostia, and it took, several budget cycles to get that funded and to get it built, and it's now under construction. But you can plant the seed now, right? And again, staying engaged with your council member. And I don't mean just the Ward 8 council member. I mean all of them who have authority or some oversight over the issue you care about. So even if it's Brooke Pinto, who, is not a Ward 8 council member. She's certainly not an at-large council member. She's a Ward 2 council member. but she has oversight over what? The area that focuses on public safety. And so even for her, like, you got to follow up with those people too, because while they may not be your direct council member, they do have authority over the things that you are passionate about. And so, but certainly I think with the council member here in Ward 8, and y'all at large council members, they usually have meetings that are open to the public. I know the Councilmember White's office, they generally have, some activities where they invite seniors and they invite young people and the like. Get engaged in that. Go to those meetings and bring up issues that you care deeply about. ANC, I don't know how many times I can say this, and it's not because I'm biased, because I used to be a former ANC commissioner and chair of 8A, but that's really where the rubber meets the road, is at the ANC level. Like, that's the most hyper local level of government there is in the city. And really, it's an example of what hyper local government looks like for the rest of the country, is what happens at the ANC level. And so go to those meetings. Each of our ANCs, we have 6 of them, ANC 8A, B, C, D, E, F. F being our newest one over in Navy Yard. They all meet monthly. Go to those meetings. You'll find that generally they're talking about topics that you care deeply about, that's right there in your neighborhood. But also the council member and someone from the mayor's office, usually they're at those meetings too, or they have time on the calendar. You can also speak up. Like, there's an opportunity for you to do what they call community, updates or feedback. And so you can speak up and let your commissioners know about a particular issue and push them. This is election year for them too. So push them in terms of, hey, this is the things I care about. Where are you on these things? Where are you on these topics, on these issues? So I think it's a great question. I would say just make sure that after all this is over, that you stay engaged, that you sign up for a mailing list, get on listservs, that you bookmark web pages, the council's web page, you bookmark the Ward 8 council members' web page, you bookmark your at-large council member web pages, and you go there often. You reach out to them because they have someone whose job it is to respond to you. All right. Okay, I have talked enough. And so not seeing anything else in the chat or Q&A, I just want to put up my last slide here, which just sort of goes back to where we all started. And that is the key dates for these upcoming hearings that you should know about. So here we are. All right. So again, the mayor transmits this budget on Wednesday, April 3rd. These hearings are going to take place between the 4th and the 2nd of May. So stay tuned. Check out that website. I dropped in the link earlier. I dropped that link in the chat earlier. So you'll see when those meetings are confirmed. They will be populated there, and they will have that nice little blue line headline there that says budget oversight hearing. That's the one you want to sign up for. They already have some there now. So if you know your why, if you know the thing that you care deeply about right now, this is the time to go back to that website and sign up for those hearings. And then again, someone asked earlier that the education one wasn't posted yet. It will be. Just give it some more time. You may have to go back a couple of times as they are still populating the site with the new dates. And you can see I've highlighted that, but there's some other meeting, key dates are on here as well in terms of what's happening. And then even though I didn't highlight this last two, I just want to speak about them very quickly, is that there's, in the way in the District of Columbia, there's two, votes that has to happen before something becomes law. And before it moves to, before it moves to the Congress for their review and approval. And so the first vote and the second vote at the end. First vote, there's a lot of things that can happen between the first vote and the second vote. So this is the time where you can still reach out to your council member, to your council member staff, to say, hey, y'all got it right on this, or you got it wrong on this. And I still think we ought to be doing this or fighting for that. Keep in mind, there will be cuts this year. The mayor has already signaled that. The office of the chief financial officer has already signaled that. I've even heard Councilmember Phil Mendelson, the chairman, say that tax hikes are not off the table. And so that means this is going to be a volatile budget. So if you, this is the time for you to get engaged in the budget process, because a lot will be happening. Taxes may go up. Some cuts may happen to areas that, had it only been for you to speak up, wouldn't have happened. I can't guarantee that everything you want will happen in the budget. That's just not how our budget works. Think of your budget, your own personal budget. Everything we want to do in our own personal budget, we can't do, right? But what we can do is plan for the future. And so keep that in mind with the budget as well, that even though you may not get what you want out of it, don't give up. We didn't give up on the new recreation center in Anacostia. We came back year after year, and now it's under construction. So a lot can change between the last two hearings there, votes there. Just keep that in mind. And then here are the contacts. Here's the contact for both the council member's office. That's his direct contact there. And then there's also his legislative director information there as well. And then there's my information there, as well as the vice president of our organization, Sheila Bunn. And I've also mentioned here the co-chairs of our issues and legislative affairs, which really focuses in on this area, who've helped prepare me for today. And so you have Michael Greer, you have Colleen Armstead there, and you can reach us through one email, which is info@ward8dems.com. We hope that you come out to some of our upcoming meetings that we have scheduled. You can do that by going to our website at ward8dems.com as well. So with that being said, I'll look at the chat one more time, just in case there's something there. Sophia, did I not get your information right on there, on the slide?
You did.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. And of course, Wanda Lockridge, her information has been dropped in the chat as well. James, thanks for emphasizing ANCs. Yes, no problem. All right. I'm going to turn it back over to corporate.
Corporate, I love that. Well, first of all, if everybody can just give Troy a round of applause. Troy, thank you for that very detailed, very informative presentation. Yes, I see the applause coming up. Definitely worth that. I couldn't have said it better. You provided all the information that the residents need to prepare themselves to get ready for the hearings that's coming up. He listed all the dates there. So Troy, thank you so very much. I will say to the gentleman, I think it was Mr. Barnes, who said, how do you get engaged? How do you keep us accountable? How you keep the council member accountable? I want to remind you, if you are Ward 8 resident, you not only have one council member, you have 6. You have 4 at large, and you have the chairman, and you have your ward council member. Be certain to advocate for whatever your why is to all 6 of those. We are here. We took notes. Thank you for those that's in the chat. We're taking them. I'd like for our team that's on the line to drop their information in the chat as well. You already met Dr. Sophia, who's our legislative director. We have our communications director on. Let me get this person in. It's better late than never. And so we have I think our special assistant is on, our director of constituent services is also here. So we wanted you to know that we're here, we're listening to you, and we will be taking this back to the council member. But I look forward to seeing each of you at the hearings. If it's not the council member hearing, every hearing that your why is concerning. And we will hope that this evening gave you all the tools that you needed to prepare yourself. So with that, again, Troy, thank you. And the one thing, and yes, he's the president of the Ward 8 Dems. One of the things that he talked about is staying engaged. I encourage you also to join the Ward 8 Democrats the 3rd Saturday of every month. I think that was on the slide there, but we look forward to seeing you there as well. Have a good evening, everyone. I'll keep this up for a couple seconds just in case anyone wants to get any information out of the chat. And again, team, if you could drop your information in the chat, that would be great.
Thank you, Wanda. I just wanted to say I dropped a link in the chat for those who want a template, a testifying template. You can look at that, and we will put the dates once we have all the dates in that folder. And we'll put that in there as well.
Wonderful. And remember this, once this is ended this evening, this will live on the Ward 8 Dems website as well as Councilmember White's website. It is a new website. It is traywhite8.com. I see that's been dropped in the chat. So please visit us on our new website. Let us know what you think. Let us know what we're missing, and we'll be certain to add that there. Again, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.